Hey guys, this is Whyt here with a new video, and in this video I'm going to be going through one of my old comics, but here I will be analyzing it and kind of going through things that I wouldn't do again.
Hey guys, real quick, I'd just like to say that this video is sponsored by Drawing Amino. I've talked about them before in previous videos as well. As a type of Instagram with like a strong, robust news feed that focuses mainly on drawing and the drawing community. You can make posts, videos, do tutorial stuff, build an audience there, have questions, discuss about your favorite shows, have polls on there, have ongoing challenges, and the list goes on. Getting to chat with other artists and really building on fundamentals of an art community. Really quick giveaway here. For those who get the app, or for those of you who already have the app, Drawing Amino has offered a $15 Amazon gift card. And if you're interested in how you can win that gift card, all the necessary details would be in the description below, and you would need to download the app. So with that said,
one of the issues with this comic, again, was that I did not storyboard properly. In fact, I was going with just the script given to me rather than storyboarding from that script. So it's almost I was going like straight on the pages without knowing how the pages were going to look. It's like I just jumped onto them without using storyboards. So that's one thing I would do differently now, and that's why when I was doing the pages, I kind of messed up having this space that I was always kind of trying to keep at the edges of the pages, and I made the same mistake for the next page, so it didn't make sense to put this here, so I ended up having this big panel for just one little action, right? Almost like buying myself extra time, and I did, but you know, I try to make the best of the situation, so I did it in the same aesthetic, almost like, because it was somewhat of a moment. So I drew it in the same aesthetic of, say, the first page when you just open the book. Obviously, everything is in grayscale. Still made some of the mistakes with the word bubbles, but I think this was pretty okay because your eyes kind of go pretty well here. The problem is your eyes are reading, then you get jumped up, and then you come down. You kind of want to be a little smoother than that, and it's actually something I learned from watching an old Mark Crilly video, and I think it's in one of his tutorial books. So shout out to Mark Crilly. Y'all can, you know, tweet and say I sent you. Problem is, when they're reading it, they might actually read this before they read this, but just with common sense, you would know you read this before this. But so that means you're telling them to read, and there's like this jerk up, and then before it comes back down, and it should just be a little smoother. But you know, this from here to here is actually pretty decent. And one thing I did a lot within this comic was have the text bubble come out, like really pop out of the panels. They did that almost every time, and that would be one thing that if I were doing this comic again, I would limit a lot. Another thing is that the text sometimes were bigger than like the font size was, you know, sometimes bigger than it needed to be. So that would be something I'd reduce. Another thing would be, before the comic is released, I'd make sure that I have like somebody, preferably somebody really good with English and proofreading, as an editor, to proofread everything and make sure everything is in tip-top shape. Here is a little nod, because like the same way you have like dollars and cents in America, you know, we have like your pounds and pennies and whatever. In Nigeria is naira and kobo, and kobo, whatever you want to call it. And so it's like a little nod in there with the currency in the comic. But going on, because the setting of the comic was not necessarily like Japan, it was weird, but a little nod there that I snuck in there. Anyways, one thing I would change is that it had too many panels. There were too many panels in the pages, and that's something I'll reduce. If we count this, we have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and sometimes that's fine, right? I'm just talking, like, most of the things that I'll say in this video is like a preference kind of thing. It's just something that I would do, and something that I wouldn't do anymore, but it's something I clearly did. So what I'm saying is, I would probably reduce that depending on the situation. You know, sometimes having a lot of panels on one page is applicable, but you know, sometimes it isn't. And I think this was partly to do with the script. But again, if I had full control, it would be something different. And this is just the book closest to me at the time. That's why I'm using it as an example. But there are other mainstream comics that do the same. and we have like what, 1, 2, 3. Usually, once you have like 6 panels on that page, then you should start to be cautious and be thinking of an exit strategy out of that page. Now you have this book, read as One Punch Man, read from right to left. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Just 6. You have 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1. You know, like, I'm not saying that this is the gold standard for comics, right? What I'm saying is, for me, once I hit like a 6, I'm cautious. There are some times, even today, that I might still do like a 9, but there's a way I do it where I'd be content with that. So it's just something to think about. I think in this comic, I kind of did it a lot. And even when I was doing it, it was something I was trying to avoid. But, you know, with the script and with the actions that needed to take place and the page limit for the whole comic, it was difficult for me to kind of hit it down. And that's why sometimes some pages will have more panels than I actually wanted. And making things a little more hectic. Now, if you wanted something that did look very hectic, then maybe that's what you want to do. Maybe that's what would be fitting for your comic. Other things would be here where I have things that are too detailed. Sometimes the line variation of the comic is a little all over the place. So another thing I would change is I would have more line variations, so the characters or things that are closer to the viewer would be in thicker lines, and the things further away would be in thinner lines. And I did it sometimes, to be fair. I was aware of it, and I did it sometimes. I think I did a little bit here in this panel. Another thing is I would probably add more backgrounds to at least some of these panels, at least one of them, just to remind the viewer of where they are, and, you know, keeping track of that. You can see a thing I talked about earlier where it was always printing the name of the comic here. Those are the things I know how to fix now, and I wouldn't, like, for here, I wouldn't have had any of this. Yeah, because you have the page pagination, and you have like, it's almost like double pagination, which is unnecessary, is redundant. And sometimes in comics, especially if the panel, in this case, especially if the panel goes over it, you just remove whatever is there. So you see comics with page numbers, but if the panel extends to cover that page number, then that page wouldn't have the page number written on it. But let's say if the page number was a 007, it would still be a 007. It would just not have it written on there. And that's something to keep track of, even when you're doing when you have to deal with printing as well. You see here, have this is pretty decent. You know, I kept it to a minimum. We have just like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 panels here. But again, this is just a preferential thing. One thing that I'll change again, I always had like the text bubbles popping out. Again, that's something I'll change. I think I did it damn near every time. And sometimes that's fine. I think a lot of Western comics do that. Western comics, not so much, because like Western comics, because it's a team, and you have someone else doing the lettering, so they're going over the artwork, and they also don't want to cover some of the artwork from the artist. But in this case, it wasn't necessary to do it every time. And you see some of the pagination going over the artwork. So yeah, it's not a good look. I like the fact that sometimes I change the font depending on what was said or who was saying it or the emotions they were saying it with, and that's something I still do today. So I wouldn't change that. I would add more speed lines where applicable, because so far in the comic there haven't been many. There's really just one here. I probably added one here. So yeah, there's still a lot more that I would do differently. But some of the artwork is still pretty good. I mean, look at that. I like those eyes. So yeah, just not to reiterate myself all the time, but if I was gonna tone, usually when I mean, obviously the character's skin is not toned. I'm just toning this whole thing, this like everything here, and leaving the background white. It's almost like to make you focus on him a little more. But I would tone in the eyes, because it almost makes him right now, kind of makes him look like he's a character of color, which he isn't. So that's probably something I would change, where I tone in everything else. And if he was a character of color, I tone it the same way, but then I tone in the skin alone. And if you look at my current work, you kind of have an idea of what I'm saying. So, you know, so far so good. I don't want to say the same errors are still some of the same errors I've already talked about are apparent here. So I would change, but the artwork itself, again, it's not that bad. See a little bit of a establishing shot here where we see a window, we see some smoke, so we kind of have an idea that some character is in this some kind of bathhouse. So that was good. But again, with the establishing shots, I probably would add more of those. But you know, with a one shot and limited pages, it's okay sometimes to skip them and go straight to the point, especially in an action comic where you want things to move and you need to care about the pacing. The pacing of the comic overall, I don't think was terrible. I thought it was okay. And again, some angles that I thought were pretty good. Some shots, yeah, I thought were pretty good. Well, you still have that error of where how the panels are expanded. Come here, I wouldn't do this again. It doesn't look good. I don't like it, at least. I don't know. I was trying to be innovative because sometimes with comics you want to take some risks and try things that other artists haven't done before, or something you don't see that much of. But I wouldn't do this again. I would keep the distortions of text strictly to, say, sound effects if I'm doing it digitally, and you know, that's that. But I like the idea of it, of this guy casting a big shadow of it. You know, you can go a little philosophical with that, but whatever. And some of the artwork, again, I think this is okay. I think this is fine. I still do this kind of things where I'll just blacken everything out and put text bubble there. I think it looks cool. We got some cool angles here and there. Distorted text to make it look like sound effects. I think that works. Some of the angles I like. Some of the action I think is pretty good. One thing I didn't do as well with this comic, like I said, some of the reasons why I made the mistakes of, like, say, reading the script wrong and not doing storyboards, because usually you do the storyboard and then you give the storyboard to the writer, and the writer goes through the storyboards and everything's approved before you go with the pages. But I just saw the script and then I started working with the pages, and on top of that he made some mistakes within the script that needed to be fixed, but some of them were too late and I already made the mistakes. And you know, some other things were my fault, where I read things wrong and say, like, the character here wasn't supposed to have its head like cut a little bit the way I have it here. But when I read it, the way I read it, I thought it was interesting because it made the scene just a little less cliche you know, in my eyes at the time. But this was something that I read wrong, but we ended up keeping it in just because of how different it was. It was almost like a mistake, a happy mistake. A happy mistake to me. He was not too fond of it, but you know, we ended up keeping it, especially because I had already done the whole page as well, and we kind of be wasting time and not hitting deadlines going back and trying to fix every little mistake. And again, I think we made it work. So yeah, sometimes with the action scenes, it would have been better if I, you know, had a storyboard showing how everything was going to be placed before I went on and did it. But overall, I think I still did a good job, considering that I didn't use storyboards at all. It still has some of those panel expansion issues that I talked about earlier, as you see right here, where I would probably have it expand completely. Some of the speed lines are okay, I guess. I just would do speed lines a little differently. If you look at the way I do speed lines now, it's a little different. Speed lines and focus lines and all that kind of stuff. But some of the motions and strokes with the character showing motion, I thought that's pretty okay. I have videos on storyboards. I have videos on speed lines and focus lines, and you can watch those where I talk into more detail. You can come back and watch it here just to be up to speed. But basically, storyboards are just thumbnails of how the panels are going to look, basically like blueprints, and then they get reviewed before you actually go and create finished pages. Then you have issues here where I have important art, or in this case it's not that bad because it's just like an exclamation mark, but you see like the samurai top hat title going over it is just messing things up a little bit. I like the shot a little bit. I think this is fine. Try to do some things creatively here where you have like the blood is almost like, because it's hitting him and the blood is kind of like dripping on the character doing the punching, but in this case it's almost like the blood is going from this panel down to this panel. So you know, I kind of like that. One thing I would change here is that you have the villain here, or one character here and the character A here, character B here, but when I put it, he's almost like flipped. It's almost like he's on the other side. So if I were doing this again, I would have him facing here just to keep things consistent. Sometimes you can have that switch. It's called the 180 rule, or some places say the 360 rule, whatever. I think it's 180, but you want to keep if this character's on this side, this character's on this side, you want to keep it that way throughout the comic, unless something significant happens or you have a reason, some kind of reason to switch them. Within comics or art in general, as long as you have a reason to break the rules, you should be fine. So you know, this is not law. I mean, it is, but as long as you know the foundation, you can break the rules. I like some of the landing here. He's getting up, saying some stuff. I kind of like these shots. It's almost like, as a viewer, you're seeing them, like you're watching this deadly fight happen from the bushes. It's like you don't want to be a part of it, but you're watching from the shadows, the kind of things. And that's kind of like what this was, so I like that. And it goes on. Here, I'm not too fond of all this extra space that I left, and how I placed this panel and how the hat is and things like that. In fact, it was even worse before. I remember like digitally fixing it, but still needs some work, especially with the hat. It looks a little awkward. I like this shot. I like this shot a lot. Not so fond of how I've placed the font. Again, like I said, with the text bubbles, I always had them pop out of the panel, and sometimes that was unnecessary. But for the artwork itself, the hectic nature of the strokes of the pen and things like that, I thought was pretty good. I think some poses and some of the drawings some of them are not 100% anatomically correct, but I thought they were still really cool looking, some of them. I'll probably have, if he's screaming, or saying something with his mouth open, I would have some here next time. Same here, but you know, maybe sometimes no. You can make a case where this could be like a moment in the comic where, even though they're screaming, you're not hearing anything. But because of the speed lines, it makes it seem like it's more hectic and therefore requires some sound. But you know, whatever.